My name is Mru Patel. I'm the partner and CEO of Sapient Group and partner and CEO of Flash Group. I'm a serial entrepreneur, best-selling author, been in the tech industry for over 3 decades, written several articles, books, etc. Enough said about me, but with me today, I've got a good old colleague, friend that we've crossed paths in during my Siemens and Sun Microsystems days. So we go back when .com was started and where I would say, technology innovation with the .com and the Java and AI, blockchain, quite a lot of it started during a time, and it's now coming to fruition at a grand scale. So today we would like to just chat through not only from past history, but we also want to chat through what's coming in these artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, quantum computing. Where do we both see it? And where does that lead us in terms of real life use cases where the big investment bucks are going and things along these lines? So without further ado, Gary, quick intro, and then we kick off, buddy. Nice to have you.
Yeah, so my name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies. I was on the original management team at Click Software, sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, a little less than 2 years ago. And also Eva.ai, which I had started 5 years ago, almost to the day, actually. And we love AI and quantum computing. Today, I'm the CEO and co-founder and president of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio that searches the world for resilient teams that want to go global. You know, we've been called the unicorn breeders. We love AI and quantum. In fact, next week we'll be down in Africa because there's some incredible companies that are on the continent, and we're out there looking for those companies to curate them, to use Silicon Valley as a port to the rest of the world.
Fantastic.
I read too. I've written 124 articles just in the last year on AI and quantum, and have won a couple of interesting awards. Not sure why, but they gave them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've had award speaking and books, and I lost track how many articles I've done, but I did a COVID book as well on the whole blockchain and tech space as well. Previous ones have been entrepreneurial based, holistic health based as well. So I scaled that side as well, having done that side of the business. But we're not talking about longevity here. We're talking about tech here. So Gary, in your view, so in our days, I certainly I did a lot of the YAC and the assembler and Lisp type of AI early days programming, where I cut my cloth, I guess. But then nowadays it's moved significantly where I don't think there is a single area that AI ML cannot touch in terms of business vertical. What's your view on that? And give us some insight on some of the things you have seen, and I'll chip in as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, let's just paint the picture. So today there are 40 zettabytes of data on the planet Earth. And to visualize it, if we took CDs and stacked them one on top of another, it would go 29 times between the moon and the Earth. That number has grown at 68.7% per year. So we're inundated with information. At the same time, if you look at your own personal cloud, each one of us here, including your viewers, has about 300,000 items across the board within their personal cloud. Well, let's put it in comparison. In 1996, when the World Wide Web was created, when it was flourishing, there were 300,000 items, or 257,000 items. You and I have more items in our own personal cloud, the entire number of websites on the web in 1996, and that number doubles every year. In 5 years, there'll be 10 million items within your own personal cloud. Think about it. Every day, how many times does somebody say to you, I sent you a message? Where did you send it?
And can you send it to me again, please?
Can you send it again? Why? Now think about it. Here you are, you've been around the block a few times. You've been working for tech companies. I have PhDs from MIT, PhDs from Stanford, top 50 CEOs of companies. We're in a state, as Alvin Toffler said, of infobesity.
Absolutely.
We need to have artificial intelligence across the board. And, when you said rightly so, that vertical markets, where is it in terms of verticals? Well, then AI is transportable. In fact, I wrote an article about this in Forbes magazine. And it's not about the transportability, it's about the training sets. So if I needed supply chain or manufacturing or healthcare, health tech, I can use the same deep learning, machine learning. It's just I need the training sets. Our lives are inundated. We are in a state, as Topher said, of infobesity.
Absolutely, because I remember, as you rightly pointed out, during those dot-com days, 95, 96 at Sun Microsystems, when it all started, we were telling the early guys, this time even eBays were just even being thought of, and same with Amazon. Facebook didn't even exist. We were telling these early adopters that this is the way to go. But, we needed huge data centers for this, and now all of this is on our mobile phone, and more than those days. So data drilling, data mining, data analytics is a huge thing. Again, we used to say in those days, data is king. So now, how do you make that data into knowledge and experience, and also take some decisions? And I've seen lots of technologies that allow you to not only drill and mine that data to your requirement, but also help you make decisions faster. And the more quantum computing comes into play, we will be able to process it faster than the human brain, which is where I see that explosion. But I see it within 10 years, by the way. I don't know what's your view on that.
Yeah, so the first thing is the human brain processes about 50,000 complex transactions per day.
Yes.
So, it's been a while. It's taken some time, and reflect back and Ops 5 and Lisp. It's been a while. It's taken us some time to get the artificial intelligence to the right level that the technology can really handle, and really to sing like a symphony orchestra. But we're come to those times. We've come to that time, although there's a lot of room to grow. At the same time, if we look at it, there's such an incredible opportunity because of this inundation that we have. Think about it. The supply chain. Isn't it amazing? We didn't have enough insight into the supply chain to even figure out if we could get a roll of toilet paper. Now, how can that be? We have quantum computers. We've got incredible supercomputers. We've got all these ERP systems, and you can't even get a roll of toilet paper. So something's wrong with the picture. So I remember 5 years ago, I was on stage in California, and I was speaking at VentureBeat, and I talked about predictive insights. And people, this was like the beginning when folks were starting to talk about artificial intelligence on a really broad scale. And I remember I started talking about predictive insights and for my company, Eva. Well, guess what? Those realities have come true. And it's not about the insights, it's about the action. So you have unsupervised and semi-supervised AI. Think about it. With this data, we can't, just like we talked about within our own personal cloud, we can't even manage the data we have. We don't even know what we have, right? If you say, do you remember the PowerPoint presentation from the guy from Oxford that he sent me 2 years ago? And you say, well, I think it was about robotics, but I'm not sure. I think that had, so imagine if you had tools that were able to go down through all the data, all your data repositories, and define that for you, and on another sense, an unsupervised way, to actually start to schedule appointments and tell you what you should be doing. Like, not a smart, but an intelligent assistant. Those are the kind of technologies that we need. They're going to help us. I believe we're going to have our own kind of like guardian angel. So let's say an intelligent assistant that goes around and knows so much about it, it can really predict what we need to do. And some of the main mundane tasks, just do those for us.
No, absolutely agree. In fact, this image I've got behind me, I chose it for a reason. 3 years ago, I was talking to some of the authorities in Dubai, and I said, look, this blockchain thing is new. This was 3 years ago, and you guys are they have an e-gate system, so you just whisk through. I said, wouldn't it be nice? Because the passenger is coming to your country before he arrives. Wouldn't it be nice just straight through that mobile? You could know that he's coming. Instead of an e-gate, you would know through NFC. He just taps that, walks through, but then you personalize everything for him, where he's staying, where he's living. Based on that, you can send him targeted information, best restaurants, bookings, taxis, you name it, all through that. And he said, oh, that's a lot of course. No, AI helps you do some of these things. and drills and brings all these data sources from multiple places, and it gives you that right the way through to the day you leave, integrating it with your itinerary and with your spend, and you will know exactly what you've done, where spent, and I called it my digital walk. You will know your digital walk and be able to write a blog without even having to waste time that you, I, and everyone writes when we're in the aircraft. I did this, then I went this. This would do it for you. So the productivity gain was fantastic. And I think the guy said, yeah, we like it, but we're not ready yet. Let's see if it's proven. So I think 3 years on now, people are beginning to do it. And I think the main catalyst for that is COVID. Because of COVID, people have realized everything must be digital or else your business will die.
Yeah,
sure
well, I mean, think about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, McKinsey said 93% of the companies have gone down through and we're going through digital transformation would take 10 years. Well, that 10 years had to be really brought forward because guess what? I remember 5 years ago.
No one can sustain 10 years.
Yeah, you would die. 5 years ago, when I was on Zoom, I was one of the early users of Zoom. I remember I used to send the links out, and my friend said, "Oh, why would I want to do that? I have Skype, I have WhatsApp." I said, "Because this is really cool stuff. This Eric has developed this really cool stuff," and I got it from one of his VCs. You know, and I remember passionately Eric was talking about some of the things that he was going to do. We'll look at it. Over 400 million daily active users later. Zoom is used like copy, like Xerox was a few years ago, Absolutely. Right? You know, what are you going to do? I'm going to do a Zoom, whatever that is. And so now we've moved into another world, a more broad reaching. I believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't. Now with the advent and use of Zoom, we can touch. I have companies in Africa, in South Africa. I've got companies in Rwanda, companies in Nigeria. Why? Because we can now touch base, and we're accustomed to be able to do business without even getting in front of a person because of the Russian roulette experience. We don't want to take a chance of dying.
Absolutely.
And so here we are. It's changed everything, and but the companies that embrace it are going to win.
Absolutely.
The individuals that embrace it are going to win. And if they don't, there's going to be two classes of society, I believe. The ones that understand data and can manage it and use the technology, and the ones that don't have a clue. So our job is to make the playing field more even, which, by the way, Zoom's done a good job of.
Yeah. And, again, that's a great case in point with Zoom, which is what we are using. I've been using it for years as well. I can't remember how long. But we were doing conferences and video conferences in the 90s. I remember when internet started, instead of traveling all the way to Mountain View or Palo Alto or wherever, we were doing it from UK. We were doing video conferencing just like this. Only in those days, you had to have big cameras and big speakers and Cisco routers and all these things, right? But it's the smaller companies generally are innovating. And, you doing these things in Africa, so am I, India, various other places, Eastern Europe. Skype was there for 20 years. Skype didn't develop. Why? The biggest thing that went wrong is a big conglomerate went out and bought it. Same thing with WhatsApp, was doing fine. It would have exploded. Big conglomerate, dare I say, Facebook, with their dirty blackmail ways of doing it. That's why you've got Signal and Telegram and all these other things, right? So the smaller guys are being more agile rather than having that corporate bureaucracy to stifle growth and rapid growth fast. So COVID has helped do this. And taking it on to AI as well now, I think the upcoming new AI technologies will not be from these big guys. It will be from the smaller people. And I'm sure that's why you are drilling places in Africa and Eastern Europe like we are as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And I'll never forgot, Scott McNeely said to me many years ago, and recently again, a couple of years ago, is that always go to the areas that you fear the most. And Scott McNeely is one of the founders of Sun with Bechtolsheim.
Yeah, my ex-boss. as you know, my ex-boss, yeah,
And he was,
and yours, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And, but what he said was really amazing. And that was go to areas that you fear the most because you're going to learn the most. And I reiterated with him when I had lunch with him.
Absolutely.
It's just the truth. And the other thing is you want to go in opposite direction of where the market goes because Warren Buffett, right? That's where you find the opportunities. So when I went to Russia and I moved over to Russia, people say, you're crazy. Why would you go to Russia? You're American and living in Moscow. Well, because there's lots of really smart people that are doing some really cool stuff. And it's really interesting. And oh, by the way, some of the top AI people in the world are coming from those kind of places, Russia, Belarus, Ukraine. And so why not find it? Romania, yeah, Cluj, all over the place. And what you have to do, and also Africa, places like Africa and Indonesia and Australia, you got to find those folks that think differently. And we believe there's really three pieces to the model. One is you need intergenerational teams. You need the people that have been around the block a few times because they have a lot of contact and a great network.
Absolutely.
Right. Cultural diversity, people from different cultures, so you can look at things in an entirely different way and try to have a more 360-degree view.
Absolutely.
And the third thing is decentralized teams. So if you're doing your R&D work in a place like Cluj, where you've got the right kind of value for the dollar or for the euro to be able to get this stuff done, or Russia or Africa, wherever you can do it. Create anywhere where you can find the talent to get the right job done at the right price at the right time. And it's like Eva, my company, 90% of my resources are still located in Russia, my R&D resources. But my operations office is in Silicon Valley. Why? Because the valuation's higher, because I have access to partners and opportunities. And by the way, many of the investors from around the world are, within minutes of my office. So if I want to go meet somebody in Sand Hill Road, it takes me less than 10 minutes to get there. So it's a whole lot easier. It's just, I remember I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania. When I grew up in a 500-person village, I remember if you went fishing, you wanted to go down to the fishing hole where the fish are located. You don't want to be going in some lake where there's no fish. And I remember one time a friend of mine said, I'm going to go in this other lake by our house. And I said, but I know they just stocked this one and they put in some really nice rainbow trout. And he said, no, I'm going to go the other one. Well, I caught my limit of 6. He didn't catch any. I ended up having to give him 3 of mine. And the moral of the story is go where the fish are. So why in the world would you want to not go where the fish are, wherever that is? And that's where you'll find opportunity.
We have so much in common. I must admit, that's why we're having this. So even on that story that you just gave, multicultural, so that's me, totally. Born in Africa, British citizen, lived in America, lived in Germany, around the world, India, Dubai resident, Romania. I speak 7 languages. So when you've lived and traveled across multicultural communities, societies, seen how the dynamics are, you can get the best out of most parts of the world and say, for this type of skills, this place is better, this type of skills, this is better, and build that global thing. Hence the reason why I left the corporate world in 2003 to do this entrepreneurial journey, even though I was doing it on my own. And the fishing thing as well, born in Lake Victoria in Kisumu, I remember as a kid, 12, 13-year-old even, my brother used to go and take me fishing with him and shooting as well. And he used to say, that's not where you go. That's where all the rest of the people are going, because there is no dirty track there. They want nice, clean track. You want to go where the dirty track is, around there, and you'll find the best catfish or the best tilapia and this other small fish, which is called mumi. So in Swahili, that's what the locals ate. And it was amazing to find it in a different place to where the locals went to fish, because it was easy to get to, and coming back to McNeely as well, one quote that I always remember, he says, all the skills are never inside the company. And that was at the time when we had like 35 or 1,000 people. And he says, we still don't have all the skills in-house. So that's why we did the open source thing. And that's why I think all of this blockchain movement has taken off so much, because of open source when we gave up Solaris. So he says, give it out, let them do it, and we will do the QA and testing and all that in the Valley. But the best skills are in Eastern Europe and Russia and India and all these other parts of the world. Get them from anywhere, but find those. And now with the internet and blockchain and AI taking off, like really taking off, I think the world has become flat. It's no longer round. It really is. You're a stone's throw away from the next person you want. So in terms of use cases, coming back to the AI side of things, apart from data, and you do it as well as we see it. I'm not in that game, but in the medical field, parts, 3D modeling, all the 10 disruptors I talk about, printing, 3D, all the way through to automation of factories, spraying, the whole supply chain, the whole the agricultural way of how things farm, all the way through to creating what I call the best kind of crop based on the terrain and the climate conditions that the human brain cannot constantly think and calculate. So it's doing it live and things along these lines. Where do you see some of these? I mean, Africa is a great place to be implementing some of these use cases, and I'm sure there are lots of other cases out there. Have you come across something really exciting in that?
I mean, I come across really funny things every day and multiple times a day. So, I mean, look at so just one example in agriculture. Let's paint the picture. There are 8.1 billion people on the planet Earth. By the end of this century, there'll be 13 billion. We do not have enough food production capabilities today to be able to feed everybody. So we've got to start now to put those kind of things in place. So exactly what you said. So I had Samir Sharma, who's the top person in Intel, Internet of Things, the general manager. We had a deep discussion. Think about it. We put these sensors out in the field. We have self-driving tractors.
Yeah.
The difference is before we used to do it after there's a problem. We would start to, if there's a problem within the field, we don't have enough potassium or whatever it is, we've got to go down through and correct it. But we do it after it's once we look at the plants and they're dying. Well, why don't we do it on a real-time basis? Whether we're using drones, whether we're using sensors in the ground, to understand. Now we can imagine how efficient it is being able to use self-driving tractors and balers and those kind of things to bring the products in. We're doing a lot faster, a lot more efficiency, and creating more supply. The other side of it is things like, Beyond Meat, right? Capabilities out there using soybean, those kind of thing, and 3D printing to print meat-like tasty foods, but they aren't meat, they're plant-based. So imagine how much that's going to change things. So we're really in the dawn in a whole lot of different ways. Let's talk about genomics, gene editing capabilities. Think about it. We can take cancer out of a person so you don't get it. There's diabetes. We can really change it. Now, the problem is we're not that precise enough yet, and we may get a little bit too much out or a little bit too little, but it's getting better and better all the time. So stem cells, you look at stem cell research. There's a place in Panama today, and I'll never forget, I listened to Mel Gibson talk about this facility, and I actually then called the facility up in Panama. My friend needed a hip replacement. He's in incredible shape, 50 years old, needed a hip replacement. The guy's, like a model kind of good shape. So he ended up getting stem cells. In 6 weeks, he was able to walk again. So he had stem cells therapy, cost about $6,500. So we're in the verge of something incredible. A few years ago, I took MBA students. I took a summer off and took MBA students from Skokova, Russia, the university, over to Silicon Valley. We worked with Stanford professors. We worked with some high net worth individuals. And the idea was living to 120. We're not that far away from not only 120, but 150. And so what is it? So we go down through and course correct things like smart pills that can actually understand what's happening inside of us, nanobots. So if there is cancer detected, to course correct it instantly. Computer vision, one of the studies at Stanford University was to look at melanoma on the skin and to be able to tell better than over 21 of the top skin cancer melanoma specialists what was happening. And so then imagine have actually directive surgery to be able to cut it out and not take too much, because that cancer is about taking too much. too much chemotherapy and too many cells that aren't affected. So we're in the dawn of an incredible, incredible era.
Yeah.
Look at where we are with cars. Battery technology is increasing about 30% per year in terms of capacity. New technology like lithium fluoride batteries that last 6 times longer than lithium ion. Motors developed by companies like Yamaha, right? To be able to drive things, bicycles, motorcycles. We're really at this transformational time. And at the same time, Mru, in India, it's the first time in 30 years because of the pandemic, we've been able to see the Himalaya mountains.
Yeah, thank God for that, right?
Yeah,
But I mean, you see it even in forests and lakes and just general seaside. And just now I'm in, in Valencia, overlooking at the sea, and I saw 12 people surfing, and it's bloody cold out there, but it's so clear and clean. It hasn't been seen so clean in such a long time. So coming back to something you touched me on as well on the stem cell side. So I've been looking at also a company in Ukraine, and they claim that they can regenerate your body to live to at least 120. So they do this treatment. And whilst I don't know the legalities of some of this technology being implemented in the medical field, they claim that with these regeneration program, which is done for you, the whole body, the cells and things will get repaired, where it's kind of like a complete car service, but for body service, that your heart, all your diabetes, cancer cells, your lungs, if you're a COPD sufferer, if you are a heart patient with high blood pressure, all the type 1, type 2 type of diabetes issues, all the common stroke related things, the blood clogging, the statin based stuff that people are dependent upon, etc., etc. And I was really intrigued by this and looking into it. And that led me to another company called Nanogenomics or something like that. Hang on, I even bought the share actually, BGN, and they are doing quite a lot of this. And I think something we touched on earlier is the thing that's slowing some of these things to happen fast is access to huge compute power. And this bio-nanogenomics people were talking about, they've already got ways of doing it, but it's the compute power that is slowing the answers to what is required to get some of this into market fast. So with the compute power, if we can move to that, where do you see quantum-based computing in its current stage? And I know what Google and Microsoft and all these guys are doing, and even NVIDIA, because some of our ex-colleagues from Sun, Jay and Shankar and all these guys are out there, by the way, who I met a couple of years ago as well, whilst I was speaking at an event over there. And they are talking about some huge, I forget the term even, how many teraflops or gigaflops, the petaflops they were talking about in terms of compute power within the next 2-3 years, and in a small space. So with that coming on, and I think I mentioned to you, I've got a friend in the Valley who is developing something that is at least 10 times, if not 20 times faster than what Google already has. So these new startups is where it's happening. Are you seeing anything that might happen in the next 2-3 years in the quantum space?
Yeah, sure. But I want to go back
It'd be
to
good for you to touch it as well. Yeah.
the one point that you said about the Ukrainian company is interesting, because that's what it was very fascinating. There was a conversation with Mel Gibson.
Okay.
And Mel Gibson's father actually went to that facility. That sounds like it's
the
doing
same
similar
one.
things.
It's probably the same one then.
They're doing the same kind of things where they actually regenerate your cells over.
Oh no, this is the one in Panama though. That's the one in Panama.
Yeah, in Panama.
Okay.
In Panama.
So it sounds like similar things, yeah.
Yeah, and well, with him, so and some of the people that had it done, and I think there's a video. If you Google Mel Gibson and his father in stem cells, you probably can bring it up. But there are people going down there that had heart attacks that completely had their hearts repaired, and his father had a sexual dysfunction. Even that changed, and he felt a lot better. He was able to, walk again. and he had problems with memory, got better with that. It was like it literally across the board. So I think that it's very interesting. I called him up myself. I don't know how much do they charge in the Ukraine for doing it. Do you know?
So I know someone who went there for mainly heart, for heart, blood pressure, and diabetes, and he said he paid about 40 grand.
Yeah, I think it's like 20 grand down in Panama.
Really, that's cheap.
Yeah, because I called them up and talked to them directly, because I was going to go down in 20 or 25, and it's not that much. But
Wow.
the people that have
I wouldn't mind having the details for that, because I want to look into that in a big way, not only for me, but for family reasons as well.
Yeah, no, I can send it over to you. I have
their app. So we can all party till we are 120.
I mean, it's amazing, right?
Absolutely.
So those are some of the things that we need to take a look at. And when you start to hear actual people that have gone through it, having these, before and after, physicals where everything's changed, it's amazing. So I think, so that's the one thing. And then going back to your question, so imagine the capabilities. Let's just paint a picture for your audience that imagine a computer that has 100 million times more processing power than state-of-the-art supercomputer today. So imagine the capability to be able to process something that would take 10,000 years on a supercomputer in 200 seconds. That's the kind of processing power we're talking about with quantum computers. So, and then you start looking at countries like India that have, or China, and I'm sure India has the same thing, but China has, and that have 10 times the power of that. So we're in the dawn of a new era, and then you combine artificial intelligence. Now, the challenge is we got to be really careful, because there are political issues when you start having that kind of
and
power.
Security and data is the biggest issue I have with those, especially with 5G and all this Huawei stuff that's been going on. That's my biggest issue with that. Yeah, carry on, sorry.
So if you look at, in terms of attacking those kind of areas, I'm actually working with one of the graduates, PhD from IIT, and the company's called SplitByte. That company's actually quantum-proofed data by decentralizing the data. And there's a lot more to it than that, but imagine the capabilities of decentralized data, because encryption's been around for a long time.
A lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are doing that IPFS way of doing decentralized data for that very obvious reason. And the biggest issue, in my view, is digital cyber warfare. Really, is my big issue. In the wrong hands, that's what we're up against. The war is not with bullets anymore. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I had a 4-star admiral on my show a few weeks ago, Admiral Bill Owens, who is the #2 guy and the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the White House. The entire U.S. military ran the 6th Fleet during Desert Storm, that kind of a person. And we had a conversation. He said the next war would be, who flips the switch? Because with quantum computers and AI, imagine being able to shut stuff down. And by the way, you see some of it today by some of the probing that's taking place in banks and grids that are out there. You see systems being tested all over the place.
Central banks everywhere. No, I mean, the war side as well. I remember, I don't know whether you were there in Siemens Nixdorf at the time, where they had a British base in Germany, in a place called Senelaga. And I remember Major General Henry Hill, we were telling him the war is now fought with computers. And we simulated the whole war, going out, doing recce's, right the way through to collecting that data and simulating the war on big, huge workstations, how to do that through technology, really. And even the pilot was like 5 million for just a pilot in the late 80s, early 90s. But you can imagine what's going just now in all the big Pentagons, GCHQs, NSAs, all the Department of Defense people getting together, the billions that's going into this. And I hope AI and quantum computing is used in a good way rather than the counter way that I'm 100% sure is happening as well.
Yeah, I mean, the situation. So, going down through it, and on the negative way, I mean, we look at, the political implications of it, but we need to think about, listen, we've got some real challenges on this planet. As I said, there are 8.1 billion people. By the end of the century, there'll be 13. At the same time, with global warming taking place, it's projected just in Florida that the sea level could go up 2 feet, right? Two
Yeah.
feet's going to cover a good part of the state, and it's going to cover some coastal areas. What did they say? Some cities will have 4 to 6 million just in India underwater. And at the same time, I was lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to spend about 6 months with Dr. Irving Crick. Irving Crick founded the meteorology department at Caltech, one of the first meteorology departments in the planet, and also was a student of Einstein at Princeton University. He was 84 years old when I met him. I was blessed to have a chance to spend with this guy. He's a meteorologist that worked on Operation Armament, Invasion of Normandy, doing long-range weather forecasting, using algorithms, right? So weather is, it's not linear, it's a reoccurring pattern over time.
Yes.
One of the things he told me, so we started talking about climate, and this was back in the early 90s. And he said, Gary, he said, when you start to see the Gulf Stream slow down and it snows in the UK, you understand that the problem has started, right? You're going to see changes because the Gulf Stream slows down, the food supply starts to slow down. The Gulf Stream warms British Isles, and when you see snow come, the changes are taking place. Then he talked about birds, right? Then he talked about bees. And I was at the time thinking, this guy, like, maybe he's been around the block too many times, I mean, he's a genius, but I was listening to him. But guess what? Those things are happening. Bee populations are down about 50%. So we need to go down through. We have, I deal a lot with space. I have a couple of astronaut friends. We got 6 billion Earth-like planets just in the Milky Way galaxy, just the Milky Way, and estimated now based on Kepler project and some of the other data sources that there are about 200 trillion galaxies in the universe. 200 trillion.
Yeah.
6 billion times 200 trillion. So we've got a lot to explore. My friend Christopher Altman, who's an astronaut, he says, Gary, when you're out in space and you look down at the Earth, you understand how small we really are compared to everything in the universe. We've not explored anything. So we need to go down through and think about how to preserve ourselves, how to make life better. Or we've hurt our planet in a whole lot of ways because of greed, for all kinds of different ways. We need to heal the planet. And, this global warming is speeding up so quickly, right? What did they say, 20 centuries happened in, what would take the 20 centuries before happened in the 20th century. So in 1 century, we did as much warming as happened in the 20 centuries before that. So it's there. The sea levels are rising. Average temperatures have gone up. I remember Dr. Crick telling me there'll be 2 breadbaskets in the world, Canada and Russia, right? There'll be water wars. He told me this. He said, Gary, with global warming, there's going to be water wars. You're going to see population increases, and you're going to see people. This was back in the early 90s, buying water in bottles. And that didn't happen in those days. You used to get a glass of water with your dinner, with your breakfast. You would get water at the restaurants in the US. Now you get bottled water. It is entirely shifted. He said, you'll be buying water by the barrel. It'll be sold like oil. And it's amazing, right?
No,
how that's
scary.
changed.
It's so scary. It is scary.
Well, we can go down through as humanity. We got to work together. We've now with this, we understand what's happened to the whole entire planet with COVID-19, that we are vulnerable. It's not that we've got incredible technologies and knowledge, but the basic kind of things, hand sanitizer, vaccines, paper towels, basic things. We can invent quantum computers, but we couldn't get enough toilet paper. What's wrong with that picture? It doesn't make sense. We need to go down through, and those are the basic things, ventilators, hypodermic needles. We couldn't even get, at the most advanced hospitals in the world, we couldn't even get masks for the doctors, right? They were wearing, gas masks from World War II. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So we need to go down through and look at each other and figure out how we can work together. Now, how we can pull each other apart. Because unless we start to do that, now, this is just in our century. Now take it out to the next century after that, when the population doubles again.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen when that happens? Nothing good. You know what I mean? Nothing good.
Yeah.
So
And the important thing you said is we need to work together because, again, in our space, I tell almost everyone, don't think that you can do this on your own. If you are not going to collaborate with other people and create a proper ecosystem where everyone benefits, including, we have a percentage of our profits going to self-sustainable CSR-based projects. So everybody, you need to create what I call a social capitalism, It's not socialism and it's not capitalism, but it's a happy media between the two where you are taking care of everyone and everyone is getting paid forward, everyone. So from the contributors to helpers to people who even just look at what, Google, Facebook, all these guys make money from us. We are their product, but they don't share that revenue with us. We post data and content to them to make them look good. We don't get paid for it. So social capitalism is when they should pay even the contributors and share it and pay it forward. Same thing with, with all the social side of things we said about the planet and humanity-based projects, all has to be paid forward somewhere, somehow. And you are into Africa. I was born in Africa and raised there as well. There are so many places in Africa that even a simple mobile smartphone can earn them money through blockchain, which is some of the things we are developing as well. Just by having it as a master node with some cash in it, instead of every so many months, the Red Cross and all these people giving them money that goes out, give them recurring passive income and then help them build their self-growth, your irrigation, clean water, all this that is done itself rather than a handout way. So, the planet, and again, I think we're in violent agreement that COVID was a good wake-up call for everybody, It's a very good
yeah,
wake-up
absolutely.
call.
I mean, it's helped us understand our vulnerabilities
Yeah.
and also understand, some of the simple values that we had gotten away with, family,
Yeah, we
simple
forgot.
kind of things, board games, riding bicycles together. We had to go back and we had to reflect on who we are, what we want, and where we want to go as a humanity. And that's the beauty of the situation. And then we go down forward. The democratization of opportunity on a global basis is really helping everybody. So, as I said, we're spending a lot of time in Africa, all over, because there's so much opportunity. And I know if we create jobs with these companies, they're going to be able to feed their families better, and the
Absolutely.
world's going to be a
That's how
better
it goes.
place, right? Everybody wants to take care of their family. Everybody wants to, have children and that kind of thing. So let's go down through and create a better existence. And when I say this, I'm not trying to say this in a utopian kind of way. I'm saying this just has to be the way we move forward. We need to understand that we need to help each other. There's other things on this, in this universe. We got asteroids out there that are coming close, near misses with the planet. We need to be able to go down through and thwart these kind of things to keep them away from us. We need to explore the universe to see what's out there. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that are out there that we just don't know. Stephen Hawking says, what about civilizations that could be 100 million years ahead of us, right? And let's go out, let's explore, but let's not come out as these violently, folks that are trying to conquer. Think about what the, Europeans did when they came over, or people from all over came to the US when the Indians were here, right? It was their land, and we moved them into reservations. We basically herded them in and did not good things, not fair and just things.
Yeah.
And how would we want that to happen? Would we want that to happen to ourselves?
Absolutely.
Probably not.
Absolutely.
So, we can change the world together. We can live longer. We can. I was on a panel by PharmaVision talking about AI and drug development. We're using AI for models instead of being able to reduce the amount of bench time. Those are the kind of things that can help
Absolutely.
humanity.
Preventative stuff. Yeah, absolutely. On that very positive note, Gary, absolutely. I think one thing everyone has to do is whatever it is, with it 5%, 10%, 2%, bring it forward to help the planet and, you know, the less unfortunate people to get themselves sustaining, because otherwise we are not going to survive. It is a fine balance, that without that balance the world will go bad, because then they will start burning wood and doing all the pollution stuff because they haven't been equipped, and that spoils it for the rest of us as well. So people need to understand that complexity and balance. You know, it's like the wolf's story going into forest without that ecosystem balance of a wolf being there or a lion being in the forest to create that, you know, dare I say it, from my Kenyan Simba days, you know, without the lion and creating that ecosystem, you see the dry, horrible lands, and that has an impact on the whole planet. So fantastic, Gary. It was great to chat with you. Any final comments, thoughts? I'm sure we are going to have quite a few of these together.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the situation is there's a great opportunity on this planet for each and every one of your audience to be able to put their own job said. And so it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to figure out how we can work together and not how we pull people apart, how we make the planet a better place, not a worse place, and how we can help each other, you know, help ourselves. And so that's really where it is. And you know, the overriding thing is we want to be happy and we want to be able to have compassion for other individuals. That's really where society is, and that's what we need to strive to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, thank you very much, Gary. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on another talk. And in fact, we've got a longevity and a deep tech stem cell guy as well, who's also into, you know, my space as well with the digital banking and things along those lines. So I will stop the recording now and we can have a chat.